You got what I want, got what I want. You give me just one look and you know I'm good to go. You know I'm good to go.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me on Minds of Commercial Real Estate. Today we have RK Bob Brown, a foundation specialist. Bob, thank you for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good. So Bob has been doing his specialty for about 35 years, and he's amazing at it. And I will let you give us a little bit of background about yourself, Bob.
So I graduated from Arizona State University a long time ago, back when people rode dinosaurs to school. And I graduated in architecture and in finance. I started out doing concrete repairs. That's kind of how I worked myself through college. And eventually I built it up into a large foundation repair company. And I sold that company and a foundation investigation, a forensic engineering company. I sold both of those about 2.5 years ago.
Very nice. And how long were you doing it for?
Around 35 years or so.
35 years. Great. So let's go through a couple factors that you have, and you just based on the book that you gave out. So people say, what are these cracks in a home? And when they say crack in a home, they say a foundation repair is needed. Let's go a little bit more in detail.
Yeah. So first of all, what are the signs that people would look for, right? And this relates to commercial as well as residential. So when you see cracks in the drywall, sloping floors, doors and windows that are pinched and at a square, in other words, the top is maybe a gap and on the other side is a pinch, right? And it sticks. It doesn't work right. Windows and doors. Those are the kinds of things that tell you that the walls are moving around. And when the walls are moving around, that tells you that either your floor slab or your foundation, your footings are moving around. So those are the things you'll look for. Now, once you see those signs, you see problems, the first thing that most people notice is cracks in the drywall, right? That's easiest to see. The first thing they do is they Google, okay, foundation repair, foundation problems. What do I do? The first people that come up on a Google search like that are the foundation repair companies because they make a lot of money. And I know I was one of them. And they're good at marketing, and they want to be the first in the home. Now, the problem is these are not really the guys that should be diagnosing these problems. They might be okay at fixing them, but they really shouldn't be diagnosing them. They're going to send out a commissioned salesperson, 100% commission. Guy's going to make somewhere between 100 and 300,000 a year, and they're going to see everything through the lens of how bad is it? Is it going to get worse? All the questions that people have, they're going to answer those questions with, you need to do foundation repair today. So it's not really analysis. It's sales pitch dressed up like analysis.
What about all foundation repairs about fixing settlement?
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, there's other problems besides settlement. There's heave. What is heave? Maybe we should back up and talk about soil a little bit. Soil is very complicated. It's not a simple thing. You have many layers and some of them are thick and some of them they pinch down into nothing. And some layers had different densities and different mineral contents and different affinities for water. If you have clays, they swell when they get wet. If you have silts and sands, they can consolidate when they get wet. You could have all this going on at the same time. Okay, well, one of those things that I just mentioned, when clay gets wet, it swells. Well, if your structure, your house, building, whatever is sitting on top of that, it's going to go up. And if part of the house or building goes up and the other part doesn't, guess what? You get all the cracks in the drywall and all the things that we were just talking about, but nothing's settled. And that's a problem because foundation repair companies typically don't have solutions for that problem. So they ignore it and they tend to interpret everything as settlement, and it's not. And there may be minor cracks. You may get cracks for lots of reasons. Has nothing to do with settlement, right? Thermal expansion and contraction, dissimilar materials, lots of things can cause cracking besides settlement. So again, that's the risk you run when you call a foundation repair company. They're going to interpret everything as you need to spend $60,000 on peers.
Next issue is homeowners insurance covers foundation repairs.
Insurance typically only covers things that are sudden and catastrophic, and unanticipated, right? So the fact of the matter is, something that's been happening on a house gradually for the last 15 years, insurance is not really designed to cover that. And to clarify it, what they've done is they've built what they call an earth movement exclusion to kind of delineate that, hey, if the problems in your house are caused from earth movement, we don't cover it. Now, there are a couple of small exceptions. So if you have a pipe break underneath your house and it floods out and everything underneath the house and causes all kinds of immediate catastrophic problems and your house is moving all over the place, you might be able to get insurance to pay for that, but it'll be a fight. I've been able to do it on one of my rental houses, but I'm in the industry and I kind of know how to work the system, and I was able to get it covered. But it's a tough fight for most people.
Foundation repair salespeople are qualified design specialists.
Yeah, that's the overstatement of the year. No, they're not. They're car salesmen or furniture salesmen, maybe the year before or a couple years before. Compare them to the qualifications of a forensic engineer. An engineer needs to go to school for 5 years. He has to be an apprentice under a licensed engineer for 3 years. And he has to take 2 very difficult exams, an FE and a PE exam. And then there's more stuff on top of it if you want specialties like the SE designation for structural engineer. So very rigorous, very difficult. You compare that with the training that salespeople get. They might get, 4 or 5 days training at a seminar put on by their supplier. Not really the same thing, right? But they're going to be very confident. They're going to, project. They're going to tell people, oh yeah, I'm better than an engineer. I've been in the trenches doing all this stuff. We see what's going on. Those engineers up in their ivory towers, they don't have any clue what's going on in the real world, right? They'll try to say baloney statements like that to qualify themselves, but they're really not. They're not educated in soil mechanics. They're not educated in structural load paths. And really what they're doing is they're designing fixes to a structural system of a house, which is something that should be reserved for engineers.
What about the free analysis by foundation repair contractors is a bargain?
Yeah. Let's talk about that. So it's true that if you call a foundation repair company, they're going to come out for free and they're going to do their analysis for free. But it's not going to be real rigorous analysis. It's not going to be analysis like an engineer would give you. It's going to be a sales presentation dressed up to look like analysis. They're going to basically interpret everything as you need to buy this today. Let's just think at it this way. Okay, you might have to spend $1,000 or $2,000 maybe or $3,000 for an engineer. That's not free. These guys are going to do it for free. Well, the way I like to look at it as if you were really sick with a real serious disease, life-threatening disease, would you pay good money to go to a doctor or would you go for free to a pharmaceutical rep? That's kind of the similar choice that you got on your hands here.
Permits pooled by the contractor ensure proper engineering.
Yeah, here's a big one in the industry. So the foundation repair people will tell the customer, oh, don't worry. We're going to have to pull permits for this. And when we do, our engineer's going to look over everything and make sure it's good. Well, that is a bald-faced lie. The engineer, if he probably knew the salesperson was saying that, would probably withdraw his services immediately. And here's the reason why. Engineers cannot make recommendations or design specifications on data that they did not gather. it can be by a direct employee who's a bona fide employee under the direct influence or control of the engineer. Like he can have an assistant that goes out and collects the data, but it cannot be another company. That other company is not under the control of that engineer. So to tell people that, oh, don't worry, the engineer is going to look all this over. No, when you go to pull a permit, and this is one of the things I got to get changed in the world, the jurisdictions, the only thing that the jurisdictions check for when you pull a permit is a spacing calculation, the spacing between piers to make sure it's not too far apart and it groups between piers. That's the only thing they check. You could have the piers on the wrong side of the house. You could have too many, too little. You might not even need any piers at all. And the permit process doesn't correct for any of that. I'll give you a great example that highlights this. I had a project up in the mountainous areas of Arizona, and the stem wall was a block stem wall. It was not concrete, it was block, and it never got grouted solid. You know, things happen in new construction, right? Well, this block wall over the time had worked its way loose, and it worked its way away from the house. So it was just barely hanging on, just barely holding up the house. Well, the foundation repair salesman came out and said, oh, don't worry, when we underpin this, we're going to rotate that thing right back into place. Well, obviously that didn't happen. That's silly. So then when they went to get paid, she's like, well, wait, you know, the problem that I called you for is not fixed. And then they're like, well, you know, for another 27,000, we can actually fix that problem. And she's like, what? You know, so I actually knew the engineer for that. And I called him up and I said, hey, so like, what's the deal here? Why did you put your seal on this? And he's like, Bob, they didn't give me any information about that condition. I knew nothing about it. All I did is a spacing calc for these guys. And that just goes to show you that the engineer who's doing the permits has no clue as to what the original condition was and what the solution to fix that condition should be. Totally separate.
Great advice. All engineers are qualified.
Okay. So let's talk about engineers for a second, because most engineers work in infrastructure, dams, bridges, highways, you know, sewer and water treatment plants and distribution systems, commercial buildings, maybe. Very few work in residential. And of the ones that work in residential, very few of those do forensic work. Okay. So what's forensic work? Well, when you go to you go to the morgue or the police lab, you know, where they're cutting open someone to find out how they died, that's the forensics lab, right? They're figuring out what happened. Or if you're getting in a lawsuit, you know, they're going to send over the forensic accountants to dig through your files and find all the smoking guns, right? So forensics is when you have an existing situation that needs to be analyzed, as opposed to new construction. Okay. Now, the other half of that, most people, when they see these problems, they want to call a structural engineer. Well, I got cracks in my structure. It makes sense. Call a structural engineer, right? It's really not the right guy to call. And I'll tell you why. By the way, I should preface this by saying there are some really good structural engineers that do a good job. But for the most part, it's difficult for them, because the questions that people have are, hey, is this going to continue? You know, what happens if I do nothing? You know, the structural engineer is just going to basically say, well, it's not structurally deficient. Okay, we kind of knew it wasn't ready to fall down right now, right? And if you say, is it going to get worse? He's going to say, well, it's, you know, that's a function of the soil, and you really need to have a soil engineer. You need a geotechnical engineer. And so you've just wasted your money with the structural guy, and you might as well just get a forensic geotechnical engineer right from the very beginning that understands what's going on and what needs to be done to fix the existing problem. And by the way, those are the guys that are going to be able to tell you if things are going to get worse or not. Okay. So if anybody else tries to say, including a structural engineer, oh yeah, it's all done moving, or oh, it's going to keep moving, you know, or whatever, any opinion about continued soil movement, if they're not a geotechnical engineer, they are BSing you, because those guys know the geology of of an area. They know how the soil layering was put down. They understand how water moves through those layers. They do borings all the time and look at the different layering and understand the different mineral contents. That's why they're geotechnical engineers. They understand all that stuff. Nobody else really understands it.
Lifetime warranties as an act of assurance.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a great one. I mean, I owned a foundation repair company. I kind of helped write a lot of these contracts. The lifetime warranty is not worth the paper it's written on. Now, obviously, there's differences, but I've seen an awful lot of them, and most of them have a lot of get-out-of-jail-free cards for the contractor. I'll give you an example. 5 years later, the customer calls the contractor and says, "My house is cracking again, come honor your warranty." He sends out one of his really experienced guys, and he says, "Hey, you know what? These cracks and things, they're from heaving. And it says right here in the contract that our piers can't stop heaving, and we're not responsible for heaving. So have a nice life. We'll see you later." And then the homeowner's sitting there thinking, saying, "But wait a minute. If it's heaving, didn't you might misdiagnose it wrong in the first place?" And the contractor says, "Hey, what do we know? We're not engineers. We're just dumb contractors." Of course, that's way different story than what they told the first time, right? But that's just the way it goes. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of verbal statements made and nobody holds them accountable for it.
The state contractor licensing boards that oversee contractors will protect homeowners from problematic foundation repair contractors.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites, called the design donut hole. So you call the state contracting board that oversees the contractors for your state, right? They come out and the contractor's there, and the contractor says, "Hey, we put in our piers in a workmanlike manner. The problem is, they have other problems that need to be addressed." And the state contracting board's going to say, "You know what? We don't oversee designs. We only oversee workmanship." So then you call the engineering boards that oversee like the technical registration for engineers. And they say, "You know what? We have no jurisdiction over contractors." So in reality, what happens is there's no organization that oversees the proper design of these problems. It basically goes unregulated by everybody. And that's the most important part. These piers that they put in the ground, they usually get put in right, and they're very good products. The problem is, are they in the right location where they need it at all? Blah, 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 enough of them, too many, all of those things go completely unaddressed.
Over time, foundations stop moving, or if the foundation is moving, it will continue to move.
Okay, well, that's kind of piggybacks on what we talked about earlier with geotechnical engineers, right? They're the only ones that can make those assessments. And foundation repair sales guys will just say, "Well, it's been moving, it's going to continue to move." Well, that might be right, but it's a really big assumption, right? You don't know that. You're just guessing. And so the fact of the matter is, it takes a good geotechnical expert to know what's going to happen in the future with soils.
What about city and county inspectors will ensure property construction of foundation repairs?
Inspectors, right? You want to make sure it gets done right. Well, here's the problem. City inspectors, for the most part, are really not qualified in these specialty areas. I can remember having a city inspector come out and have him say, "Wow, this is really cool. Can you send me some information? I'd like to learn about this." It's like, okay, dude, but you're supposed to be inspecting us, And so what cities have done, have gotten smart to that. And they've said, "Okay, you need to hire a special inspector." Now, a special inspector is a licensed professional engineer or one of their employees that comes out and makes sure that the job gets installed and then puts his seal on it and gives it to the city and says it was done right. Okay. Now,
Is that the deputy inspector?
yeah, it's kind of a deputy inspector, sort of. That's right. And so now the problem is, a lot of the cities are saying to the contractor, "Go out and get a special inspector. We're too busy. We can't find any." So now you've got a foundation repair contractor, and he's got a special inspector that does all of his projects. You think that inspector is going to like rock the boat with that contractor? Do you think he's going to really hold him accountable? No way. He's got a good gig going with that guy. No, that's not the right way of doing it. The right way of doing it is to have, first of all, let's back up for a second. A lot of times you call out 3 contractors, you get 3 different bids. One peers on this side, one peers on that side, one peers all the way around. How's the homeowner supposed to know which one's right? They don't. It's crazy. They're not experts. How would they know? And so they go with the guy that they feel most comfortable with, which is the best salesman, which is probably the least qualified to be an engineer. What should happen is you should call an engineer who comes out and assesses the problem. And if it needs fixing, which it may or may not, but if it does, then he'll design the plan and he'll say, here's my plan, here's my drawings, install 6 piers right in this location. Now, you send that plan out to 3 bidders or 5 bidders or whoever, whatever. First of all, you're going to save a ton of money because now those contractors are going to sharpen their pencil. They can't play games anymore. They can't like, oh, I'm smarter, we're better, all that stuff, right? No, it's, apples to apples bidding, and you better sharpen your pencil if you want the job, right? So you're going to save enough money through that process that you'll probably pay for the engineer. Okay, but now let's talk about what happens afterwards. Okay, so now if you do it right, that same engineer should be the special inspector. He's going to hold the contractor accountable. He is going to be the one that says, hey, this pier didn't get installed right. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to do it over again. Or, hey, dude, what's with the spacing here? This is way too far apart. I mean, there's lots of things that they can inspect and make sure it gets done right. Let me tell you one of the big problems that happens in the industry. Get halfway through the project, the contractor comes to the homeowner and says, yeah, we're going to need 10 more piers. Ooh, that's another $30,000, please. The homeowner's like, they're not qualified to know whether that's right or not. They're totally, they're totally out of their element. And if somebody gets their dander up and says, no, I'm not doing it. Do it per your original bid. Then the contractor has this secret thing that comes back and says, okay, fine. But there's no warranty on the project. Oh, no. Now the contractor's got the homeowner with the barrel again. Oh, okay, well, I guess if we need a warranty, you better do it. I'll have to spend another 30 grand. Okay. Well, if you have an engineer who designed the plan to begin with, and the contractor throughout the project comes back and says, hey, we need to add like 5 more piers. The engineer is going to say, nay, hog breath, explain this to me. I did the original investigation. I know what's going on here. Now, maybe the contractor has a good point. I mean, engineers are not perfect, right? But at least the engineer is qualified to look at it and either agree or disagree. And there's none of this BS about, oh, no warranty, which the warranty is worthless anyway. You know what's worth something? An engineer's seal. An engineer's seal that says, I diagnosed this problem. Here's my solution. Here's my drawings. Oh, and at the end of the project, yeah, I inspected it and it was done right. Here's my seal. That's worth something. That's worth a lot. These lifetime warranties are not worth anything.
And finally, once the work begins, city county inspectors help protect homeowners from unfair change orders.
Oh, we just talked about that. Yeah, I kind of skipped ahead a little bit. The fact of the matter is, homeowners are totally at the mercy of contractors when it comes to change orders. Half the guys doing the work get paid on a commission basis also, just so you're aware. And so if they get out there and they forget equipment or they miss something, they want to make it up. Oh, the easiest way to make it up is to get more on the job. Oh, we need to add 3 more piers because I got to make my percentage,
Got it. If there's one, so these are all different points that are in your book, but if there's one advice you can give to a property owner, what would it be if they face an issue with their foundation?
Well, first of all, let's talk about how you figure this stuff out. So, I mean, a good listing agent can can look ahead of time and see, oh, I see some cracks and I see some things, before I get this thing listed, let's get some experts in here and find out if it's really a problem or not, right?
Mhm.
And eh, the engineer might come out and say, yeah, it's got some cracks, but you know what? They're thermal movement cracks, or they're not moving anymore, or it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Now you got the engineer seal saying that, and the home inspector brings it up. Man, I got somebody who's smarter than you saying it's not a problem, right? So now the fact of the matter is you can kind of head the problems off at the pass. Oh, and if you have to get things fixed, then get them fixed before you're in escrow. Don't wait until you're in escrow. And we used to get calls from panic realtors all the time. Yep. There's 2 days left in the inspection window, and I just got the home inspector's report. Can you come out in 2 days and give me an analysis? Yeah, right. It's impossible. There's no way. You might get a foundation repair company to come out and look at it and eyeball it and shoot from the hip and go, oh, yeah, you need $90,000, but not really analysis. And so the fact of the matter is you want to head these problems off before you get into escrow. There's just not enough time in escrow. I mean, even if everybody agrees, okay, we agree, buyer and seller agree, we're going to put in 13 piers. Okay, well, first of all, you got to go get it designed. You got to get permits. Well, that's about 8 weeks right there. Then you have to get on the schedule, and they don't put you on the schedule while it's going through permitting, because sometimes permitting can get held up, and now you're screwed because you got a schedule coming up and no permit. So they don't schedule the work until they get the permit in their hot little hands. So that could be another 8 weeks or maybe more, 12 weeks. You're not going to get it done during escrow. Now you can agree, okay, we are going to withhold $45,000. We're going to hold it with the escrow company to pay for the repairs. Okay. And now that everything's closed escrow, the seller's gone. He's living in Timbuktu. And now the foundation repair company comes out and they play the old, oh yeah, we need 5 more piers. Well, now who's going to pay for that? Not a fun place to be, right? So it's not a good idea to address these things in escrow. It's a better strategy to get it up front. And by the way, if I was a listing agent, what I would do is I would get to know local forensic geotechs in my area. Go take them to lunch, get to know them, talk about what's our soil like. What I'll tell you why that matters. If you're in Phoenix, the name of the game is, or any kind of dry area like Phoenix, the name of the game is to get the water away from the house. Gutters, drain lines, 20 feet away from the house. If you're at Houston, it's the opposite. It's very wet climate. You want to put a soaker around the house with a timer on it that waters it for so many minutes every day, because you don't want that drying out on the edges. That causes settlement, right? So you want to know from the local experts, okay, first of all, how do we take care of this? And then you want to have, that relationship in your back pocket. When you have problems, you want to be able to call him and say, hey, George, I got a problem. Can you come out and take a look at this and tell me what we got to do? And now you have carved out a niche for yourself as an expert, having the right people in your group, right? Being known as the guy that can handle these things and take care of them and save homeowners a lot of brain damage, right? That's the niche you want to carve out for yourself.
Well, thank you for all the advice. I hope, all the viewers have gained a bit of knowledge. It might be a little bit over their head, but what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
So the easiest way to find me is my website, Foundation Repair Secrets. And you can find my book on there. You can find my blog. And if you sign up for my newsletter, you can get the 15 myths and also 10 most common mistakes that real estate people make when foundation work. And, you can kind of, it's, as you pointed out, it's sort of like drinking from a fire hose, right? Today, nobody's going to retain all this stuff. But if you go to my website, you'll see it all. You'll be reminded of it. You'll have a better time absorbing it and putting it to good use for yourself. FoundationRepairSecrets.com, and reach out to me anytime. You can reach me from the site. Respond to my blogs or whatever. I'm on social media known as the Dirt Whisperer. You can find me that way. I'm always helping people. I have a directory to help people find forensic engineers. It's free. They don't pay me anything to be on there. I just do it to help people.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for all your community work, for being out there and helping people, get it resolved and do it the right way.
Absolutely. Doing it the right way is the most important part.
Great. Well, thank you for being on the show and look forward to having you on future shows.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, share any questions or comments in the comments below, and follow us on social media. I look forward to seeing you next time.
Let's get together. Let's get to having some fun. Let's do whatever. The night's looking so young. Let's get together. Let's get to having some fun. Let's get together. Let's get together. Let's get together. Let's get together.